Welcome to another video in the Fixed Assets playlist. In the last video, I explained an overview of the business process and the important concepts related to fixed assets depreciation. In the video today, I will show you everything that I explained in the last video on SAP S4HANA 2021. I will start by creating the fixed asset master data and explaining the important fields such as the cost center and the depreciation areas. Then I will post an acquisition value to the fixed asset and we can see the financial entries. And then I will show you how to post the fixed asset depreciation and display the log and reprocess depreciation if needed. And all of this process I will do using parallel accounting. So in my example, I am using two accounting principles and I'm also reporting on two different currencies, local currency and the group currency. So we will see all of this on SAP S4HANA 2021 in this video. Before we start the demo, it's very important that I highlight that all of this demo is on SAP S4HANA 2021 because in SAP S4HANA 2022, there are many changes that happen to fixed assets. Fixed assets is one of the areas that change a lot with every S4HANA release. It is getting improved a lot every time, and it is very important to realize there are differences that we can actually see between the different S4HANA versions. So the demo today is on S4HANA 2021. Now let's start with our fixed asset master data. So the fixed asset master data transaction is AS01. We start by inserting the asset class. So now I'm going to create a machine, which is the same as the example I explained in the last video. The company code I am using is AG20. Here we have machinery and equipment 2000. Company code, I will create only one asset, enter. The description will be, let's say, depreciation demo. And here we have our account determination, which is determined by the asset class, and this determines the accounts that will be used whenever we post anything to this fixed asset. I will explain these things in different videos. And here we don't have any other important fields for now. I will move on to time dependent. And here we have the first very important field we have in the fixed asset master data, which is the cost center or the internal order. Now, if you remember from the overview video, we are going to post every month the depreciation expense. And the depreciation expense, like any other expense, it must be assigned to a cost object whenever we post this expense. So this cost object is determined from the fixed asset master data. The meaning of this is which department or which cost center is responsible for this cost. So for example, if this machine is, let's say we have a laptop. This is a very simple example. So if we have a laptop that is with someone in the accounting department, then the depreciation of this laptop should be posted to the accounting department because they are responsible for this expense. Now let's say this asset is, or this laptop is with someone in the marketing department, then the depreciation expense should be posted to the cost center of the marketing department, and so on. So the cost center field is very important and it can change through the lifetime of the asset. When we change it, it is recommended that we don't change it in this screen, but it's recommended that we create a new time interval. I will show you how to change the fixed asset master data after this. But for now, when you create the fixed asset, we have to mention which cost center will be responsible for the depreciation expense that will result from this fixed asset. Now, instead of using a cost center, we can also use an internal order, which is also another cost object. I already did some videos explaining the difference between both of them. But anyway, for fixed assets, we can either post the depreciation expense to a cost center, an internal order, or even to a WBS element. So now, in my example, I'm going to post the depreciation to a cost center. And the cost center will be 1000. There is a frequent question I get a lot in this area, which is, what if we have an asset that is shared between two different cost centers or multiple cost centers? So the same machine or the same laptop should actually be posted to different cost centers. The answer to this is we cannot do this directly from the fixed asset master data. So whenever we run the depreciation, SAP will only post the depreciation to one cost center for every asset, but then we can take the depreciation expense from this cost center and distribute it to different cost centers as we do with any other indirect expense. So if in your business case, you have an asset that is shared between different cost centers or between different internal orders, then you will have to pick one, and then after this you will distribute the cost from this cost center to the others. Or maybe you can use an internal order, and then at the end of the period you settle the internal order to different cost centers. This is similar to the investment measure process I explained for fixed asset. So you create the internal order and then you assign it here. When we run the depreciation will go to the internal order, and then at the end of every month you can settle the internal order to different cost centers or to different other orders. This way we split the depreciation expense between different receivers, and this is the only way we can do this. But it is mandatory that in the fixed asset master data we mention only one cost object, either a cost center or an internal order, and this one will be used by the depreciation program. When we run the program, it will pick this cost object automatically. So this is our cost center, and as you see, this is in something called time dependent data, which means whenever we want to change it, we can create a new interval, and this will keep the history in the fixed asset master data. So for example, we can know that in the year or starting from 01/01/2023 until, for example, 15 of June 2023, this laptop or this asset was posting to this cost center, but then starting from 15th of June 2023 until, for example, 2024, it was posting to a different cost center, and so on. The default interval when we start creating the fixed asset is from 01/01/1900 until 31/12/9999. So it is an open interval, and then if we want to change or create a new time interval, then we can do this by changing the fixed asset master data. So now here is our cost center, and as you see, we automatically have the profit center and the segment. Both of them are coming from the cost center automatically. Then let's go to the origin. Here we don't have anything that's important. These are statistical details for information, so we can say who is the vendor that we put this asset from, who is the manufacturer, and different other details. I'm not going to use them. And then we have depreciation areas, and here is the most complicated part in fixed assets in SAP, because this controls how the depreciation will be calculated, and also it controls the residual value and all the things that I explained in the overview video. Let's start slowly with this, because it can be very complicated and there are too many different options we can have in the configuration of the depreciation areas. So first, as you see, I have 4 different depreciation areas. So I have depreciation area 01, book depreciation, 31, book depreciation with group currency, 32 is IFRS local currency, and 33 IFRS group currency. The reason I have 4, and all of these are mandatory in my business case, is because in my business case, in my company code, I am reporting based on 2 different accounting standards. So I'm reporting based on GAAP, local GAAP, and I'm also reporting based on IFRS. And since we have 2 different accounting standards, then we must have at least 1 depreciation area for each accounting standard, because whenever we post any transaction, it will generate 2 accounting entries. 1 entry for every accounting standard, because there can be differences in the valuation. This is the reason of using parallel accounting, that we can have different valuation for different accounting standards. So whenever we post any transaction to the fixed asset, in SAP we have the option to post to a specific accounting standard or a specific ledger or a specific depreciation area. And this way we can, for example, say when we post the asset acquisition, I can say that the asset acquisition was for 5,000 according to GAAP, but it was for 4,000 according to IFRS, because maybe there is a part of the cost where the 2 accounting standards are different, have different treatment for this cost, for example. And the same for depreciation. As I explained in the overview video, we can have 1 accounting standard doing the depreciation over 4 years and the other doing the depreciation over 3 years. So even the depreciation can be different between the accounting standards. For this reason, we must have different depreciation areas for the accounting standards. So this is why I have these 2, book depreciation and IFRS local, 01 and 32. The reason I have the other 2 is because I am also reporting based on 2 different currencies, local currency and the group currency. And since we are in SAP S4HANA 2021, again, because this part, especially this part, it has changed in S4HANA 2022. So until S4HANA 2021, if we are using different currencies for reporting, it is mandatory that we create a different depreciation area for every currency. So now, since I have 2 accounting standards, and I have two currencies, I must have 4 depreciation areas. So as you see here, I have 2 for IFRS, 2 for GAAP. 2 for IFRS, 1 is in local currency and 1 in group, and 2 for GAAP, 1 in local currency and 1 in group. The part for parallel currencies has changed in S4HANA 2022. There is something called Universal Parallel Accounting that was released, I believe, in November 2022. I still have not explored it yet. Until today, I still cannot get access to an S4HANA 2022 system, and I really want to see it. So by the way, if you have any way that I can access an S4HANA 2022 system, please let me know how. I would be very happy if I can get access to the Universal Parallel Ledger, and I would create also a demo for everyone on the channel. But so far, I don't have access to S4HANA 2022, so I did not try the Universal Parallel Accounting myself. I only read about it in some SAP blogs, and what I understand is in S4HANA 2022, it is no longer mandatory to create different depreciation areas for currencies, because the same depreciation area can handle different currencies at the same time with the Universal Ledger Akadoka, which made everything easier. So this sounds very interesting. So this part, if we are in S4HANA 2022, I would only have two depreciation areas. One for IFRS with all the currencies, and one for GAAP with all the currencies. But in S4HANA 2021, this doesn't exist yet. We have to create different depreciation areas for every currency. This is why here I have these 4. I hope this was easy to understand. I know it can be a little complicated. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I would make a separate video about this one if needed. And then I have the depreciation key. And the depreciation key, as I explained in the overview video, is responsible for how the depreciation will be calculated. So the depreciation method. Are we calculating the depreciation based on straight line or double tick lining and so on? And also there are depreciation keys that we can create that will do the depreciation based on the number of units produced, for example. So let's say this is a production machine and we don't want to depreciate it based on time, but we want to depreciate it based on the number of units produced for every period. So for example, if we produce 100 units in January, then we want the depreciation to be 1000, but in February we produce 200 units, so we want the depreciation to be 2000. So the depreciation value is determined based on the number of units produced. There are too many ways we can configure our depreciation to be calculated. All of this is in the depreciation key. It can be very complicated, but normally in normal projects when there are no special requirements, we use the standard SAP created depreciation keys, which are okay to be used for a straight line and the simple standard depreciation methods that are known by business. But in some cases, we have to create customized depreciation keys. So here I'm using a straight line depreciation for all my depreciation areas, and here I have my useful life. So let me change this. This is coming by default from the definition of the asset class. We can determine default values there, but we can change them. And as you see here, I can only change the ones that are related to the parallel accounting, so the one for IFRS and one for GAAP, and the other two are dimmed. This will be changed automatically with the principal area. So now if I say here that in GAAP, I want to do the depreciation over 4 years, but in IFRS, I want to do the depreciation over 3 years, and enter, you see that book group depreciation area 31 has been updated to 4, similar as to 01, and 33 also has been updated to 3, similar to 32. So they follow the principal area. And here now we have different useful lives for IFRS and for GAAP. We also have this column for the periods. So as I explained, we can say that the useful life is 3 years and 6 months, for example. And this is a very common question. How can we determine a useful life to be in months? So here, this means that the useful life is 3 years and 6 months, or 3 years and 8 months, and so on. Here, I am not going to use this because the useful life is only 3 years, exact. And then we also have the ordinary depreciation start. I can say that the depreciation will start from 01/01/2023, even if the acquisition of the asset was in the middle of the month. Or I can say that the ordinary depreciation will start from 01/04/April/2023, even if the acquisition will happen today in January. So whatever date I put here, the system will use it to start actually calculating and start posting the depreciation. And this is very dynamic. You can use it any way you want. If you leave it empty, then it will be determined automatically from the capitalization date. There are also other details that you can see by double clicking on the depreciation area. This is very useful. So double click here. And here, as you see, this is like a detailed view of what we had outside. So we have the depreciation key, the useful life, years and periods, and we have the depreciation start date. And here we have our scrap value. So this is our residual value that I explained in the overview video. So now let's say this asset at the end of its life, it will have a value of 1000. Or we can mention also a percentage. So I can say that at the end of its useful life, it will have 10% remaining as residual value. And then this is it for the master data. Let's go back. So this is only for the book depreciation. If I want to have the same in, so this is for GAAP. If I want to have the same in the other depreciation areas, then I will have to also put it here. So let's say again, it's 10% also in this accounting standard. Now let's go back. If we check the other areas, these are copying the values by default from the original area. Now I will hit enter. The useful life has changed here. So again, let's go back to the original value. So in GAAP, I want the useful life to be 4 years. And in IFRS, I want it to be 3 years. Enter and save. So now we have our fixed asset. Let's go ahead and post acquisition to this fixed asset. So the transaction to post fixed asset acquisition, I will use F-90/O F-90. I already did a lot of videos on fixed asset acquisition with all the different options, so I'm not going to explain this a lot. I will go quickly through this transaction. So let's say the posting date is 01/02/2023, AG20, and this is our currency. Enter. Then we have this is a credit to a supplier. So here let's choose our supplier. Enter. And here let's say the amount is 10,000 USD. And then for the other side, we will have a credit to, we have a debit to a fixed asset. So this is a 70. And I forgot the fixed asset number. So let's go to here and see depreciation demo. So this is our fixed asset, 204. And the transaction type is 100, external acquisition. And then the value, I can put an asterisk here and it will copy. And the tax code, I believe, is V0. Now let's look into the overview. We have a credit to a supplier and a debit to our fixed asset. Save. And the accounting entry has been posted. Now let's go back to our fixed asset master data, AS02 or AS03, and open it. If we want to see the asset values, we can go here. And this will show us like the history of the asset. So if there are any acquisition values posted, any retirement posted, and also it will show us the planned depreciation. So as you see here, we have asset value date 01/02/2023, an amount of 10,000 external asset acquisition. This is the one we just posted. And if you look here in the overview, we have ordinary depreciation planned for the first year of 2062. And if you look here on the left, we have the different depreciation areas, because again, the values can be different. So what we see here is for book depreciation in local currency. If I go here, it will show me in book depreciation in group currency. Unfortunately, in my company code that I configured in the system, I have the same local and group currency, so you will not be able to see the difference. So normally, if you have different group currency from the local currency, you will have different values here. But here I have the same value for both of them. Now, if I go to IFRS, you see here the ordinary depreciation value is different, because here I'm doing the depreciation over 3 years only for IFRS, while for GAAP, I'm doing the depreciation over 4 years. So this is the planned depreciation for the year. And also, if we want to see all the planned depreciation for all the years, we can go to comparison. And here it will show you kind of the planned lifetime of the asset. So the asset was acquired in 2023 for 10,000, and then in the first year we will have this depreciation 2,750. It is lower than the second year because we are in February, so we are only doing depreciation for 11 months. And then in the second year it will do 3,000. Last year, third year, it will do 3,000 also. So here we have 1, 2, 3, so 3 years because we are in IFRS. and then the remaining value is 250. So what will remain in the asset is 1000. So the asset value, we posted the acquisition for 10,000. So the 10% residual value is 1000. So SAP will make sure that by the end of all the useful life, the 3 years, we will still have 1000 remaining that will remain in the asset, and no more depreciation will be processed for this asset. The useful life has ended, but this is a residual value. This is why we have nothing planned for 2027. And as you see, the ordinary depreciation is negative 9,000. Acquisition is 10,000. So we have a remaining value of 1,000, which is our residual value. So this is for IFRS. Now, if I switch to GAAP, here we have 4 years instead of 3. So in the first year, 2062. In the second, to 2050, to 2050, to 2050. And then in the last year, the remaining value is 1000. So it will post only 187.5. Now, if I go to posted values, we can see the details of the plan, the depreciation plan per period. So here we have, if you look in this section, we have the planned values for period 2, 3 until period 12. And this is for the first year that we are in. So every period will have 187.5 of depreciation. If I go to IFRS, every period has 250 USD of depreciation. So this is very useful. This is how we can understand everything going on with the asset. If you go to parameters also, you can see the useful life and different information. So scrap value, these are coming by default from the fixed asset master data. What I love about this screen is it is very dynamic and it has a refresh button here. So you can actually go to another screen. So let's go to /OAS02 and start changing the asset, the depreciation area values. So if I go here to depreciation areas, let me show you this in a good way. So Asset Explorer, this is our asset values, and here we have the depreciation area for the same asset. Now, what is nice here is whatever you change here, once you refresh in this screen, you will be able to see it immediately. You can actually start playing around with these parameters to get the depreciation value you want. So let's say the depreciation for IFRS will start from April. So 01/04/2023. And then save. Now it's saved. Let's refresh here. And now before I refresh, look well at this number here. So we have 2750. And if you go to posted values, we see we have 250 every month starting from period 2. Now if I refresh, you will see immediately the impact due to the changes we did in the master data. So now the depreciation is starting from period 4 and it is going until period 12. And for the first year, we only have 2250 instead of 2750. So you can see immediately the result of whatever you change. This is very nice for testing. This way you can really understand the impact of the different fields in the depreciation area on the planned depreciation values. So now let's go back. And you can do the same for all the fields that we have here in the asset values, not asset values, in the depreciation areas. So go to depreciation area and here. So now I hope you understand how you can use this part. So you can go inside the depreciation area and change any of these values. So let's say we are going to do the depreciation on 6 years and then save, and then you come to Asset Explorer here to the asset values, refresh, and you will see the impact immediately. This is very useful and it will help you understand the impact of all the different fields we have in the depreciation area on our planned depreciation values. The same will go if we change the depreciation key. So if you want to try and understand what is the double declining method or the diminishing value method or so on, you can easily come here, change the depreciation key, and then refresh the asset values and see how the depreciation is calculated in every different, whenever you change the depreciation method. Now let's proceed with our process. But first, let me put back the depreciation start date here to normal. So 01/01/2023. And save. Refresh. It should be 01/02, not 01/01. So now I updated it to 01/01/2023. And here we have starting from period 2. So as you see, by mistake, I updated the ordinary depreciation start date to 01/01/2023. So one period before today, because now we are in 0102. And when we run the depreciation for February, SAP will post the depreciation of 2 months at the same time, 500 instead of 250. Why? Because we have one depreciation for January that we didn't run, and according to the master data here, we want to run the depreciation starting from 01/01/2023. So SAP will make up the difference by posting a bigger value in the first depreciation run. This is very useful also. Now let's go back depreciation areas and make it 01/02/2023. Save. And here refresh. So now it's back to the original case, which is 250 for February, and the total for the first year is 2,750. So now we understand the master data. We have seen the useful life, the depreciation method, the residual value, the depreciation areas, parallel accounting, and the parallel currencies. So I hope that I kept my promise and I explained everything as I told you in the beginning of the video. Now let's continue and run the fixed asset depreciation, which is the most important part in this demo actually. So I will close the screen and let's make this one bigger. Now to run the fixed asset depreciation, since this is the first time I do this, I will show you where to find it in the SAP menu. So go to accounting, financial accounting, fixed assets, posting, not posting, you go to periodic processing, and then depreciation run. And here we have two transactions, execute depreciation run AFAB and display log AFBP. So first we can execute, and then whenever we want to see the result of any depreciation run, we can go to the display log and see the log of any depreciation run. So first I will go to AFAB. These two are very famous fixed asset transactions, and people are asked about them also in interviews because it is the transaction to run the periodic depreciation. It is very important and it's used by every organization. So here we have the depreciation posting run. We can mention one company code or different company codes. Then we have the accounting principle, so we can actually run the depreciation for IFRS alone or for GAAP alone. And then we have the fiscal year and the posting period. So I will run the depreciation for February. Even though we are still in 1st of February, we can run the depreciation for all the month. And there is a very nice option in this program in S4HANA, which is we can run it as many times as we want. And then every time we run it, SAP will post the delta. So SAP will check if there are any differences that happened in the situation from the last run, and then it will post the differences. It will not reduplicate all the values. So it is really a good transaction and you can completely trust it. So for example, if we run the depreciation now, and then we realize that we forgot to post some fixed asset acquisitions, or we forgot to post something related to the retirement, or we found a wrong value in our depreciation and we wanted to correct it. So we went to the depreciation areas and changed some values. And then if we run the program again, SAP will allow it, and it will check if there are any differences that should be in the depreciation, and it will correct the postings that it did before. So now let's see here. We have the posting period 2. I will keep everything the same. I want to see a detailed log. So this will show me for every asset what is the depreciation posted. And here I have a test run. When we run the test run, it is limited to a certain number of assets. We cannot run test run for a huge number. And if we want to run the production run, the actual one, it has to be in the background. This is the limitation of this program. And when we do test run, we have the option to also choose the asset. But in the real production run, we cannot choose any asset. It has to run for all the company code. This way we avoid missing the depreciation for any asset. So here in the test run, I will just run it for all the assets. I can also limit it to my asset as I explained. So leave it open and test run, and here execute. Online processing is limited to approximately 1,000 assets. So if you are running a test run in your organization and you have more than 1,000 assets, then this test run will only consider the first 1,000. So in this case, if you want to test the depreciation for all the assets you have, then you will need to use the asset selection here to choose, for example, from 1 to 1,000, and then from 1,000 to 2,000 and so on. Because in every time it will only show you the result for 1,000 assets. This is only for the test run. For the actual run, it will run for everything. And here is the detailed log. So if we look for our asset, this one, ending with 4, you see that we have one posting that happened in depreciation area 1 and the other in depreciation area 32. So in depreciation area 1, which is ledger 0L assigned to US GAAP, we have a value that will be posted of 187 USD, while for the IFRS depreciation area, which is depreciation area 32 for ledger 2L assigned to IFRS, we have a value of 250. And if we want to see the details, you can click on the asset number here, and it will take you to the asset value screen that we just checked together a minute ago. So here you can see all the details. Now let's go back, and also you can see here the profit center and the segment that will be used for the posting. If everything is okay, you can go back and then remove the test run and execute. If you try to execute like this, it will tell you that you can only execute it in the background. This is obligatory. So now if I want to run it, a production run, then I will have to go to Program, Execute in Background. Until now, nothing is posted because it was only a test run, but once I do this, it will be a real production run. So here I will just click on OK. Then immediately I can also schedule it, so I can say that I want it to run overnight. So this way I am not going to overload the system with this big program. But in my testing case, I only have 4 assets, so it will not do any load to the system. So I will just run it immediately and then save. And the background job has been scheduled. To check it, go to System, Services, Jobs, and then Job Overview. Or you can go to System and then Own Jobs. Let's go to Accounting again, Financial Accounting, Fixed Assets, Periodic Processing, Depreciation Run, and Display Log. So if I go to Display Log here, Company Code AG20, and Posting Period 2, Execute, it will show me the result of the actual depreciation run that just happened. So if we click here, we can see the accounting entries and everything. So here we have the company code, accounting principle IFRS, 4 fixed assets processed in total. And then we have company code AG20, accounting principle, 4 assets processed, and the asset transaction was posted with the document number. Here's our document number. So I can take this one and then go to transaction FB03 to display the accounting entry 2023, enter, and there is our accounting entry. So we have 4 assets that were posted. This is why we have multiple lines, and we will have one for every asset. So this is for asset number 1, asset 2, asset 3, there's another one for 3, and then we have 4. And let's see, so where is our asset? So here is our asset. So we have a debit to depreciation expense and a credit to this account. Now if we double click here, so this is accumulated depreciation, machinery and equipment. So the entry is a debit to the depreciation expense and a credit to accumulated depreciation. And also in the entry you can see for the depreciation expense we have the cost center, we also have the segment profit center and functional area. Now let me show you what will happen if we change any values and run the depreciation again. I want to show you this option. So let's say I will go to my asset master data, so AS02, and let's change something in the depreciation areas. So let's say, for example, I want the depreciation to happen over only 2 years, and save. Now if we go back and run again the depreciation, AFAB, so I will run it again for the same period. As you see, I did not reverse the old run or anything. I just went back to AFAB, the original transaction, and I will just run it again without any changes. So I will run it without changing any selection. So here we have the company code, again period 2 and the fiscal year, and I will run also the test run first with a detailed log. And here I will just mention our assets. This way we can see the result clearly. So as you see, SAP has changed the values that will be posted, and it will post a difference of 187 only in this area. The change will be posted in ledger group 0L, and it will have an additional value of 187. So SAP did not repeat all the depreciation run. It will only post the difference, and this is the difference between the old value and the new value. So now we understand how to run periodic depreciation and how to analyze the log. Let's go back to our asset values /NAS03 to see the impact on this report. And if we go to posted values, here for the period 2, we have a green icon instead of the yellow one, and the status is posted. So now we can see that we already posted depreciation for this fixed asset. And if we double click here, we can see the log for this depreciation run with the accounting document number and all the details. I have also started creating the configuration manual for all of this business case, so how to define the depreciation areas, assign them to the company code with the parallel accounting and parallel currencies, and many different configuration notes. The configuration manual is already available for the elite members on the elite document library, and it's still being updated. So I only added some steps, the rest I'm still working on, and I will keep updating the manual as we go through the playlist. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope it was not too much for you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. You can also contact me on LinkedIn, and I will try to help you as much as I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.